Hello and welcome back to the Inverted Castle, a Metroidvania enthusiast podcast. You ain't never had a host like me, Eric Fox, and joining me as always is a man who assures me he's at least 1% genie on his mother's side, Tom Blight.
Look, I'm totally related.
At least that's what you say when you're trying to pick me up? Anyway, a game that you definitely should have picked up back in the day was Shantae, released back in 2002 by WayForward, and became kind of a cult classic, not many cartridges printed, but a very interesting, we'll say, or at the very least technically impressive, platforming action-adventure search-em-up.
Yeah, what you didn't mention is that it's for the Game Boy Color long after Game Boy Advance games were being released.
Yeah, a full year after the Game Boy or Game Boy Advance had come out, to the extent that they actually added in a few extra features specifically if it was played on a Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, like, there's a Castlevania game in the year that this came out, and one for the Game Boy Advance in the year before it.
It's kind of absurd. Like, I guess they had a lot of trouble finding a publisher since this game also required that the cartridges come with an extra battery, just to, like this game's a looker for the Game Boy Color for sure. But Capcom was the publisher, and I guess they held off on it to release it outside of the Game Boy Advance release window. I don't know. But the game itself was good. I don't know how you felt about it overall.
Yeah, it was alright, but definitely had some warts.
Yeah, trying to keep this game in context, essentially. For a game, like a portable game on that particular system, very impressive what they did, but there are definitely some design elements that, even for its time, I think could have been tightened up, but we'll get into that. First, we should probably, real quick, blaze through what counts as a story in this game. If you would like to start us off here.
Yeah, actually, before I forget, a disclosure? This is a weird thing that I'm not used to doing. I have actually received free stuff from WayForward at one point.
Oh, very good.
It's pretty minor free stuff, but when I went to PAX, I played Ruby Arrowfell. I don't think I was actually supposed to, and met someone who I did not know was actually Voldy Way, the owner of WayForward.
Kind of a big deal.
Who offered me to beta test it. That didn't actually happen, but he did end up giving me a Ruby Arrowfell key. So, yeah, full disclosure, I have received a free stuff not related to this game. I will try to remain impartial.
Was it also related to the podcast, or was it just you attended a thing?
Oh no, I just was at PAX.
Okay.
And accidentally talked to the owner.
I ain't never got no free stuff, so very good. Okay, cool. Establish that.
Back to the story. The story of this game is essentially there are pirates. They attack towns. I don't even remember what the reason for the initial attack was at this point.
Oh, it is the steam engine.
Is that actually the start? Because I don't remember the intro stages.
The intro stage is Risky Boots, the pirate queen of the Seven Seas, would like to, I guess, start her own industrial revolution. Basically, yeah, they attack Scuttletown, the town under the protection of Shantae, and basically the result of which is her absconding with this newly developed steam engine. Like, it's new technology, very impressive, and she wants to make a device, robot, some sort of weapon to take over the world with it.
But in order to make the steam engine better, she needs a bunch of elemental stones that would allow her to run it in perpetuity, I guess, is what's going on there.
Yeah, it's they're magical MacGuffins, but like she usually has a reason for it, like, oh, I'll get the dribble stone or whatever, so I have a constant supply of water, and then this heat stone that's always going to keep it at a boil. You know, it kind of makes sense, although they don't really justify the stone that is just sparkling. It maybe that one was just for aesthetics.
I don't know. She just wants to get out of having to, like, actually pay for coal. It's a weird motivation, but
Listen, less chimney sweeps, probably the better, but that's basically the setup, and then you as Shantae chase her around trying to get the stones before her, which involves going to the 4-ish other towns, basically, and going to their respective dungeons to get them.
Yep.
And you do actually beat her at every point, except for the last one where she outfoxes you a little bit. And instead of being the helpful townsperson that opens the way, she was disguised as that. And upon your inevitable victory, she just steals all the stones you already gotten, and then it's chase her to her own hideout, beat her robot, destroy the steam engine, set technology back 100 years or so, and enjoy the peace while it lasts, as well as deny yourself
Ascension.
Ascension. Thank you. That's the exact word I was looking for. Ascension, as going from being a half genie to full genie status, but to do so would leave her friends behind and shuffle off this mortal coil, and she ain't about that life. So she's like, nah, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, being a genie doesn't seem like that good of a deal. I mean, there's the 4 genies that are imprisoned. It's like, wait, if this is like sweet magic power, how is it that these genies are so easily imprisoned?
Yeah, and also they ostensibly only get one of their own power to transform via dance. Best of both worlds, honestly. Half genie.
But that is a convenient transition into the abilities you gain is mostly transforming into the various animals.
Yeah.
There's a monkey, a spider, an elephant, and a harpy.
These kind of are what extends your capacity to travel around the world. Like, monkey can climb up walls and jumps a bit higher.
Yeah.
Elephant will smash through smashable things. Harpy just flies, and spider climbs the background, not the actual walls.
Yeah. Interesting choice that they made is that, except for the elephant, they don't by default have an attack.
Yeah, so you're always somewhat vulnerable.
Yeah. And then you can discover attack talismans for them.
One of the overworld collectibles.
Yep.
One of several, but to get to them, a lot of the times you'll need a later ability anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can just run and fetch it immediately. That's just part of the in-between levels. If you wished, you could explore the overworld, but the levels themselves are fairly linearly arranged. You can't really do things out of order.
Yeah, I think there's probably an argument that could be made that this is more Zelda than in Metroidvania.
This game is Zelda 2 more than anything else. Like, it has the structure of go to town to get the thing, then go to the only available temple, which is a puzzle dungeon, but usually revolves around a gimmick and keys. It's side-scrolling as well, much like Zelda 2. It's more similar to that one than any other Zelda games, as well as the final boss, whose best strategy outside of items is to crouch down and stab them in the shins.
Oh, no, man, there's a way easier way to do it, in Shantae at least.
Oh yeah?
Just turn into the spider. If you have the spider's venom, you can just shoot her from across the room.
So what I actually did was just buy a bunch of pike balls and just use those, which is a consumable item. You get money in this game a little bit, we'll get into it, and it'll basically just create a single projectile that spins around you for a while. It doesn't go away on hit, but does go away after a certain amount of time, and it's great. It just hits multiple times, and it's just the only way to fly, in my opinion, because your hair move is too low range, and your body is so big compared to the screen, and thus your hitbox. A lot of the times, if you're trying to hit something, if it doesn't die, it'll just kind of run into you for contact damage.
But Eric, items are too awesome to use.
Okay, so
I definitely did that. I didn't use items very much at all.
So I think part of the reason why that is that there's very little money in this game outside of grinding minigames. Any enemy will drop like between 1 and 5 maybe on the big ones.
Yeah.
Somewhat rarely, and a lot of the enemies take too long to kill, and it's not worth to use items because they cost more than you'll get from trying to grind that out. And even in the dungeons, there's no like treasure chest type thing that'll reward like 100 or 200 or something like that.
There is the big gems, but I feel like they're relatively uncommon. Like, I think the first dungeon had the most of them.
Probably. And even then, it's not an absurd amount of gems. And when you're trying to save up for the big fight equipment, which costs up to 900 gems, you don't really want to spend 50 on a bunch of single-use items.
Yeah, I left 2 of those unpurchased, and like I didn't spend on other things. I saved for those specifically, and it was just like, I'm at the end of the game. I have everything else. I don't really want to grind for this.
It's one of the rare games where you don't just passively accrue enough gold to buy the entire economy, which is neat. But it does have the effect of you will need to play the mini games if you wish to purchase everything, and you need to play them a lot.
Yeah, and I could see if somebody was using healing potions a lot, then they would find it even more harsh of economy.
Yeah, it's rough, especially since the mini games are only in a couple of the towns, and you only get to do the dancing rhythm minigame if you're in the starting town.
And it's nighttime.
And it has to be nighttime, and there's no great way to convert it from night to day outside of actually just waiting.
Yes, which that reminds me, collectibles that can only be seen in nighttime, I'm not a fan, I gotta say. It's fine, like, you can do it, it's just... I don't know.
Okay, yeah, so Ocarina of Time obviously does this with Skulltulas. There are certain Skulltulas that only exist at night. The caveat there being, 1, it's not the only time you can see Skulltula tokens. 2, you do not need to get all of the things to get any sort of reward. And 3, you can actually change it from day to night quite easily.
Yeah. I mean, in this, night doesn't take that long, and so you can just wander back and forth until it changes. It's still a pain.
It's still a pain, it's still long enough, and this is, if you recall, a Game Boy game, and so that's just eating your battery. If you're thinking about actually playing this in its native context.
That's fair.
And the thing is, so to get these fireflies, the collectible that only exists at night, there's only 12 across a fairly expansive overworld map. Your reward isn't even all that good.
Yeah.
It's a new dance. Dance is how you get is your abilities. It's your transformation. It's your warping. It's a neat thing, like an ocarina type input style, except you have to go via the rhythm and different directions, or A and B.
Yeah.
The reward for fireflies is you can start healing after the dance. 10 gold per heart. You don't even get that for free.
Yeah. I mean, it saves you from having to go to a place and buy potions and make sure that you have potions for it.
Sure. It's just very disappointing to, like, this entire game spanning collectathon, the reward to be, you still need to cough up some dough here.
Yeah. The other collectibles is the warp squids, which are the game's fast travel system other than finding shortcut tunnels. They're only found in dungeons. They were alright, I don't know.
It was a weird tension of, I like collecting them because they felt significant. You want to be able to fast travel across the world in this game because the overworld map is so big, right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when you don't find enough, suddenly it just... Because you need to collect 4 to basically unlock the fast travel point of any given city. And you can only warp to the cities. And you'll find the warp squids in dungeons.
Yeah.
Only in dungeons, thankfully.
Yeah.
But you can't get them all in a run. You will need to come back with later abilities to get all of them.
Yes. There are 5 of them in each dungeon, though.
There are 4 dungeons and 5 potential warp locations. So if you want to unlock all the warp locations, you will need them all, but you probably don't need to unlock every warp location.
Yeah.
It's still annoying if, say, you only got 3 in the first zone, in the first dungeon, and so you can't warp back to the water zone, which you'll need to go back that way because you kind of ping-pong across the horizontal world map a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, there is a lot of fairly repetitive travel in the early game.
Yeah, the overworld, if you're not seeking out the bonus collectibles, or if it's just still in the early game and you can't really, it's a long trip between the first and second town.
And particularly, the only path you can take at first is one of the few paths that has respawning enemies, or like infinitely spawning enemies.
The little snake dudes?
Yeah, or I was thinking the scarecrows.
Oh, both. First the scarecrows,
Yeah.
then the forest area, then the water area with the snakes, then you get to the water town.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right. I see what you're talking about. I thought of those as worms.
Okay, sure.
I was thinking the like weird mole men and scarecrows in the very first scene.
Yeah.
I mean, and I feel like this is a common thing where you don't have very many abilities, and so those areas are at their hardest at the start of the game.
And at this point, you're also trying to probably fight everything, just trying to accrue some resources, get a feel for the combat.
Yeah.
And finding that, At least the scarecrows, I think, more or less died in one hit.
Yeah.
But it's somewhat difficult to hit the moles who immediately jump up and fire downward at you.
Yeah. The enemies do get stronger at night, I think.
They sure do. Or they take more hits. I'm not sure if they deal more damage, but they definitely take more hits. But you want to be at night, but you can't really control that anyway, so it's just make the most of it, I guess.
Yeah. So I found the start a little rough. I also was really dumb. For some reason, I never ran until, like, the first dungeon. I was like, oh, wait, this is way easier if I'm holding B.
I mean, I don't know how to explain to you why you should hold the B button or the attack button just to see. In any game, it doesn't even matter the game. Is it an RPG? You can probably run.
It's a Game Boy Color. There's only 2 buttons, and yet I managed not to find one of the functions of one of them for a while.
Oh man. Yeah. That's truly dire.
But honestly, a lot of the times running just screws you over in this game. Like, you see so little ahead of you that your running speed will often put you into danger before you've even noticed that you'll be in danger.
Yeah, this is the small resolution and the small screen of the Game Boy Color kind of rearing its ugly head here. The screen real estate and how large any given zone is, like you'll have blind jumps of faith where you don't know what's below you and, oh, it's the river, instant death. Live system, tick that check mark.
Yeah.
Another count against it. Like any game that has a live system, I am always going to side eye as if that alone disqualifies it as a Metroidvania.
Yeah, and unlike, say, Zelda, where falling down takes 1 heart, it takes an entire life if you fall down a pit.
I guess this is another similarity to Zelda 2, where you do have lives, and falling down a pit will take 1. But this is also a lot of enemies will do predictive patterns, where if you're just running, they'll move and attack to where you're about to be. Like, they're just designed to hit you if you are just trying to run through, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But, like that's part of the challenge. It's a artifact of the hardware it's running on being more egregious than it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm coming down as really harsh on this game right now, but
honestly, I had a pretty rough time at the start, and then once I started to get things and I feel like move past some of the beginning areas, it got better.
Yeah, once you learn the language it's actually like speaking in, I guess, it gets a lot better. You play the game as they are intending you rather than like, oh, I've played platforms before, I'll rock this. Nah. You got to respect it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I think actually the point where I kind of turned upward was in the dungeons, which I think once we got out of contextless kind of just traversal and actually had puzzles to solve and like a place to navigate with, a finite number of paths and things to collect and, a new ability. That's when I think the game really got better. Even if the first dungeon is, all right, no real gimmick to it outside of getting that first monkey power. Yeah, that was good. Later dungeons will have like, oh, this one has different states that Shantae can be in. So if you're in red mode, certain doors will open, certain things will be attracted to you.
Yeah, it's magnetism.
It's magnetism, essentially.
No, like it literally is magnetism. There are magnet enemies, and if you repel them, then they're easier to defeat.
Or they're harder because they get caught in this little alcove and you want to attract them to you so you can get their delicious, delicious key.
That's fair. That also happens.
And then another one has like a weird go into it and it's like anti-gravity almost, and you'd like zoop in the different cardinal directions and just trying to like maze your way through portals essentially. Oh
yeah, the fans.
Yeah, they look like a wormhole-ish, and you start spitting in them, and then you just navigate this little puzzle thing.
So the first time I saw them, I thought they were a trap, and therefore avoided them, and then later figured it out and was like, oh, so wait, did I just like completely solve the puzzle in that room the wrong way?
Maybe?
Because I avoided them and ran across the floor and then hit the other end of the room and became the monkey and jumped up the wall.
Listen, anytime you can become the monkey, I think is a good plan, so no shade thrown on you this time. But yeah, like the dungeons are the thing. It's just that there's only 4 of them, really. The final boss gauntlet doesn't really count. It's just a hallway of enemies.
Yeah.
But the dungeons are good. The overworld is far too large. That's mostly my take on it, is that if they had cut it out, this game would have been like an hour.
Yeah. And like honestly, I feel like the earlier parts of the underworld, like the parts that you were going to be traversing in the early game, are also the parts that are harder to traverse, or maybe I just got better.
Parts of the underworld?
Or no, the overworld.
Okay.
In terms of like places where I would fall and lose lives. I feel like there's like a few particular screens that are close to the first dungeon, and then I stopped falling.
I can see how you just kind of get used to your movement mechanics regardless, but
Yeah.
I had trouble because once I got the monkey, I always wanted to be the monkey because he's slightly faster than Shantae running.
Yeah.
But like his jump arc doesn't stop on a dime, but instead you just change which direction you're continuing your momentum.
Is that the problem? Because I definitely noticed that it was harder to maneuver as the monkey, and I was screwing up jumps more, but I couldn't really figure it out.
Even if you bring control pad back to neutral, he continues to go in that direction, and if you just like tap the opposite direction, he'll just continue going that one. And I say he, it's still Shantae, it should be she, but for some reason in my mind, monkeys are always male, like dogs.
Okay, I hate to tell you, dogs are also not always male.
I know that now, but in my head, cats are girls, dogs are boys, and those are the only two genders, cats and dogs.
Yep, gender essentialism. You've heard it here.
Oh my god.
What does that make cat dog?
Gender fluid. Anyway, that's wildly off topic. And,
Yep, that is wildly off topic.
But yeah, weird monkey mechanics. Should be on the back of the box, but also probably why you were dying. It's certainly why I died.
Monkey mechanics. What is this, Ape Escape?
Oh, man. That's not a Metroidvania, right?
I don't know.
I've never played the Ape Escape games. Anyway.
You could maybe consider it. You get more abilities.
We're really pushing the limit on what can be counted. Like, I already have an atrocious track record of thinking things like, yeah, Banjo-Tooie, that might count.
It's probably actually in the same category of as Banjo-Tooie, of like, maybe, but it's a collectathon, and that's a stronger genre.
Listen, I just want to be unique. Like, listen, I'm not like other Metroid fans, okay? I'm kind of quirky. Oh, man.
Nice.
But anyway, later in the game, as you get more abilities, like mostly the traversal, like I think when you get to the desert, there's just less pits. It's just stronger enemies, but if you can jump over them and move fast enough, you're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the flow of the game outside of one point where they force a mini game on you. Do you recall Rotty Tops and her excellent race?
I do recall Rowdy Tops and her race because I was so bad at it.
Would you like to explain in a bit more detail?
So, Rowdy Tops' race, it's essentially an obstacle course, I guess, in that like you're running and then there's either going to be things that you have to jump over or trees that you have to slide through.
Yeah, you have two verbs.
And if you don't do it right, you will hit the obstacle and stop. To beat Roddy, you basically have to be moving without stopping. I think you might get one mistake or something like that.
If you can get one mistake, I didn't see it. I needed to be perfect and constantly running.
And it's rough. I don't know. My reaction time is apparently not good enough to start jumping so that my arc clears the jumping obstacle. The sliding obstacles were fine, weirdly enough. I can press down quick, but apparently can't jump.
Well, I think the reason is that, like, as soon as you hit down, you're clearing the stump, whereas you need to have some distance between you and the rock to jump over.
That's fair.
And again, hey, screen real estate, you don't have that much time between when the rock appears on screen and you having to hit the button, and you need to be perfect.
Yeah, and so you're left with either you memorize the spacings of the things and what they are because it's the same every time, or you be a dirty cheater like me and save state.
Absolutely. Save state, rewind, whatever you need to do.
Man. I tried to do it without save states a lot and just like whatever. Fine. Save states, that's it.
Fine. Because it is imperative that you complete this. Unlike all the other towns where you just find the NPC to basically unlock the dungeon, so then you have to backtrack through the world to get to it that way. She actually is a little bit of a stinker and requires that you are faster than her.
Yeah.
And I don't like when it's absolutely necessary to learn a new gameplay style.
Yeah.
Just to progress anyway.
Yeah, at one point I had some wacky things that I was attempting to make it work so that, like, at the last moment before you flub a jump, if you press backwards, then she'll hit it and then bounce forward instead of backward. And I was like, could that have worked if I were good enough at doing it? I don't think it would have. I think you needed to be pretty full speed.
But using a damage recoil is certainly movement tech in other Metroidvanias.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're describing just because I've seen it in Super Metroid, but I don't think because of the way you build up acceleration and that kind of still brings you to a stop, I assume.
Yeah, it certainly bounced you away less, I think, but it still was not good.
Yeah, at that point you just lost far too much time and distance.
Yeah, the other funny thing that I did was after the third dungeon, they're like, okay, you should go to Mount Pointy. Very original name.
Oh, yeah.
And I talked to one of the NPCs, Mimic, I think, and he says, like, oh, you should approach it. I don't remember his exact wording, but he says something like, one of the slopes is too steep.
You should don't approach from the west or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about, so go ahead.
Yeah. The overworld is a ring, so which way is west?
I would have assumed left, like from screen, left is west, right is east.
Yeah, I went all the way to the right, which I thought of as east. It turns out he was talking about the west face of the mountain, which is on its left. And so I encountered that west face of the mountain and then ended up, I'm glad I had the warp to the furthest left town.
Which was, I believe...
Oasis Town, I think?
Oasis Town, yeah.
But if I didn't, that would have been very frustrating. I mean, it was also still very frustrating that I had gone all that way, only to find out, no, you have to go back.
Oh yeah, no, that would have been more than half the entirety of the world map to be wrong, and then you warped. Imagine doing that twice and then extra to get where you needed to go.
Yeah, so, womp womp.
Womp womp. Yeah, no, I did the exact same thing, interpreted it the exact same way. I also had the warp, but also, when you go there, the dungeon is on top of the mountain. But like all the other dungeons, it's locked. You need to find the town first, which I didn't do. I didn't realize there was going to be another town. I thought, okay, weird, last dungeon, let's just go. And instead, for whatever reason, in the previous section in the mountains, there are, in fact, 2 exits to the left, and one slightly down more is where you find the bandit town, where you find Risky in her disguise, and she unlocks the door for you.
Did you slide down the mountain on the other side?
So I save stated and slid down the mountain on the other side and didn't find anything. So then I reloaded that save state and looked up, hey, where's this other town? Oh, I'm an idiot. Yeah, couch any of the things I'm saying here with the knowledge that I am stupid and don't deserve nice things.
I mean, some of it is... The most annoying thing is that there's a save point right there on the side that you can't get up.
Right.
So if you were potentially not save stating and relying on these save points, you may have just saved yourself at the worst possible spot to be.
Yeah, no, like they will trap you with that save there. Yeah, also I can't imagine getting to a point where you can just comfortably shut this game off. Yeah, like back in the day, like there's no sleep unless you're actually playing this on the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
And even then, I think that might be a game-specific thing they need to program, so maybe it's not hardware. Anyway, don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Game Boy Advance didn't have a sleep until the SP.
Okay. It relied on the games themselves, I believe, because a bunch of the Final Fantasies had it. A suspend, we'll say.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess probably as a kid, if I were playing this, I would probably have to rely a lot more on the item to exit dungeons.
Right.
Because the saves are always pretty close to the dungeon entrance.
Yeah, there's one close to a dungeon entrance and also one in every town. That's about it.
Yeah, so I mean, it would be pretty annoying if I got like halfway to the next town and didn't get to the save.
Or God forbid, game over.
The game overs are fairly forgiving, though.
Oh,
if I
okay.
recall.
Oh, couldn't be me.
Like, I game overed and hit continue several times, and it just spits you out where you saved, but you still retain everything.
Oh, it's one of those.
Yeah.
So you still get, I guess, gems and any collectibles you might have picked up?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, I used that a couple times when I was save stating less to just reset my lives.
Ah, yes.
Right.
No, that makes sense. Although it kind of makes, like, the one-up pickups actually almost worse for you then.
I mean, it was all right. It certainly extends the single dungeon delving session, right? So I think
Right.
it's still worth it.
Okay. Speaking of the dungeons, though, how are them bosses, in your opinion, as combat master extraordinaire? No combat roll, unfortunately.
They were fine, I guess. It was kind of funny. I felt like some of them should have involved the power a little more. You can apparently, at least, what is it? The third one, the one where you get the spider.
Yes.
You can actually use the spider to do it. I just didn't.
I finished it off with the spider, but that one, it's just a big skeleton armor guy. You can just fight him, jump around, whip him with your hair, but he's also stomping on these, like, platforms above spikes, and as the spider you can hit a switch on the wall on the background to dump him there. I think it does a bunch more damage, so like that's how once I realized like, oh, I should pay more attention to the background, because I completely was laser focused on just fighting him normal style, pike balls and everything.
Yeah, I just felt like I was going to be wasting time by doing the transformation.
Yeah.
The rhythm game aspect of the transformation is a little annoying in that if you miss, you have to do it again. Although, like, if you miss an input, you can just repeat the whole thing, right? You don't have to, like, back out of the dance.
Yeah, the transformations are at least only 2 steps long.
Yeah, that's true.
But they do leave you vulnerable, like it's not like time stops or anything.
Yeah.
Even during like the transformation, enemies will still move around, so if you're trying to hot swap forms, oftentimes an enemy will just kind of be inside of your model.
Yeah, that happened to me in one particular area in the waterfalls,
where
you want to be the spider to go get a firefly, and the worms are just constantly coming, and it was like, wait, where is the space to become the spider?
You have to already have been the spider, I guess.
Or get good, I don't know.
And also in that situation, you're like, okay, I need to do this. I need to do this before it turns to day again. Otherwise, that firefly is gone.
Yeah.
Ugh. But no, the bosses, like the first one, you need to be the monkey to like avoid one attack. But outside of that, the monkey at that point has no combat capabilities.
I don't think I actually turned into the monkey during that fight. I might have just tanked that attack.
Yeah, I think I tanked the attack a couple of times before I needed to be like, this attack needs to be dodgeable somehow. Right, my only other verb. Let's try that. But actually, the fourth boss, even though the harpy has no attacking moves, you just kind of land on its head. It was actually the easiest boss, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was, however, also the least clear in that it wants you to do something that form can't normally do.
Yeah, that one was, I accidentally bonked it, and I thought I was going to take damage, and then it took damage, and that was just, oh, lucky break. But yeah, nothing would indicate that this thing works differently. Goomba Stomp activated.
Yeah, that one was a little weird for that.
Yeah, otherwise I thought, they're decent capstones, like not too like large or too intensive and like quick reaction speed type things.
Yeah.
So that it did not fall prey to the system limitations like a lot of the other rest of the game does. But fine for like a Mario boss almost.
It was kind of funny. I felt like the mecha tank as part of the last boss stuff, I just wish it gave more feedback in that I was like, oh, I think I know what I should do. I should go inside and attack the glowy stones.
Mm-hmm.
Those are just background elements. Or they become things once you destroy the gears. But I hadn't perceived the paths to the gears as actual paths.
Yeah, that was a bit of, okay, try everything. There's no danger in that zone.
Yeah.
It seems like this big, like, set piece final boss type thing. But outside of, I think, like some steam vents on the outside and maybe just accidentally falling.
There's cannons on the outside, but yeah.
Okay, I missed those. Once you get inside, you're completely safe, and so you're just inside the big robot and do the same thing a few times to ruin industry.
Yep.
Just destroy the steam engine and the primordial, like, elemental stones.
Yeah, that seems like something that would have consequences.
No, even the genie tetrad are like, yeah, Shantae, excellent work. Love what you did. You passed the test. The interview process is over.
Yeah.
Love to have you aboard.
And like, there's this real. I mean, there's not very much story to go with, but there's this real minor note of like, Shantae has anxiety about the fact that she's only a half genie.
Yeah, that really only comes up at the end.
It showed up in like the post intro scene, and then again at the end.
There's not a lot of dialogue total anyway. Again, like, this is common in both this style of game and back in the day. But yeah, she's only half a genie, and apparently that's been a secret. And at the end of the game has her reveal it to the mayor of the town she is the guardian of. And he's like, yeah, no, that's cool. You did us a solid, but can I get you for half price? Credits.
Wait, oh yeah, that also reminded me of something. This is probably the horniest Game Boy game.
I can't imagine a hornier game. Like, it's everywhere. Like, every female character design, I should say, definitely has a specific body type, especially in, like, the bathhouses. There are bathhouses, that's how you heal up. A large percentage of your start screen is just Shantae just kind of hanging out there.
Yeah. And if you always save stated before the game over scene, the game over is just a slow pan up Risky Boots.
Oh, wow. Yeah, one of the NPCs that opens the first dungeon, he's got it. He's down bad for Risky Boots.
Yeah, that's what made me think of it.
Yeah, like and it's not like overtly sexual. It's just kind of passively horny all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's fine. It's just surprising in, a Nintendo game, I guess. Not to be a prude here, but there's definitely a type on display. Yeah. It's almost like a reverse of beat Metroid fast and get a pinup. Oh, you start with the pinup. Just hit start.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Like, it's something to note for any of our good Christian listeners out there.
I don't know. Somebody who designed characters really liked boobs and midriffs.
It's an aesthetic, sure. Like, it's a belly dancer aesthetic, highlighted also by the fact that your main verb outside of jump and attack is dance.
Yep.
And they really invested in the animation for that.
It's true. Speaking of the dancing minigame, I did actually try to play it a little bit when I was like, maybe I'll still grind for those.
Oh, right.
I don't know. I just could not match the rhythm after the third stage or so.
I got up to, I think, the penultimate stage in that, but you do need to kind of ignore the beat they give you.
Yeah.
There'll be like a doonch, doonch, and you have to like kind of hit in between those. I'm not sure if that's an emulation issue.
Weird.
But like, it's consistent as long as you hit the buttons in the same rhythm. You just cannot go off of that rhythm. It has to be like a little bit syncopated.
Yeah.
Assuming that's the right term. I just pulled syncopated out of my ass.
Syncopation is when you shift the emphasis note. So not really.
Okay. Well, again, see previous comments regarding my idiocy.
Yeah, I think you mean offbeat. But
offbeat, sure.
I'm also not a musician. So.
I took piano for like 8 years. I should know, but I don't. But no, yeah, that minigame's the best way to get money. Outside of save scumming gambling, or getting really good at Roddy Tops's re-race.
Oh, does she actually give you money for that? I did not touch it.
She does. Every time you beat her, you get 40 bones.
40
smackers, and it's not worth the time investment, but again, another part of the quality of life thing. If you don't have a warp back to the Water Town, which again, I didn't. The Water Town is where you buy your fight upgrades, the big ticket items. There is no cash minigame in that town, you need to do it in another town.
Yeah.
So if you are going to grind up for money, that is also like a bit of travel you need to do if you have not anticipated this.
Yeah. And it's funny, we talked a little bit about the fast travel tunnels.
Yes.
I never found those useful.
I'm not even sure if I would call them fast travel tunnels outside. Like, they're really more just alternate exits and, like, off paths that'll hide a goodie.
Yeah, I guess I never understood them well enough for them to actually be useful for me for travel.
No, like, honestly, it's usually just easier to just beeline across the stage rather than try and search out, like, oh, this stump can be blown up by the elephant. Maybe it leads somewhere good. And also, you need to unlock both sides of it, otherwise you'll go through this path and you'll reach the end of it and it's just the ladder leading back up is blocked and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, it had this problem, I don't know, like I guess maybe for the people who aren't getting the warp squids reliably, that would have been a good path. Like, it had the problem that by the time I unlocked both sides of it, I frequently had the warp to where I would want to have gone.
I was not as great at getting them warp squids. Yeah, I would routinely get like 3 in the dungeon, which is an annoying amount when you need 4. So I'd be offbeat. So by the time I got to the second dungeon, okay, that's 1. And then I got the warp to the traveling caravan, which was the 3rd, and then no more, basically.
I see.
Yeah, so I traveled the overworld a lot. And I was not great about finding secrets, so oops whoops, I did not have a great time.
It took me a while to figure out that some things, like the stumps, were breakable.
Oh yeah, no, I had to figure that out by basically going down one of them side paths, and it was just to a goodie, but it led to just there was a stump there and nothing else, and I just had to reason that surely there is something in this room that I can interact with. And then I kind of tried everything, like the wall, and then maybe I can break something, and I did.
I did that before I had the elephant, and then I sat there waiting for it to change to night because I thought that would be a spot where the firefly was.
It looks like an altar, if you will, to a natural phenomenon. Mais non.
Yeah.
Il n'y a rien.
What else can we say about this game? I feel like we're reaching the end of useful things to say. We talked a little bit about how there were 2 Castlevania games for the Game Boy Advance when it came out. This came out in 2002. It's the same year as Metroid Prime. I'm not going to rehash that whole contemporaries thing. It's also the same time as Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance.
Of course, yeah. A great game. Love it. /S.
I mean, this game is pretty notable in that, I mean, I would call it an indie. I guess it's an indie actually published by a major publisher.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, think looking at the developers, like maybe one programmer, the main artist, Matt Bozen, I'm assuming is pronouncing his name right. Apparently these are all also, like, the character design was from his wife, Erin, and then, like, that's it.
Yeah.
Outside of a lot of, like, support staff from, I guess, Way Forward, and this was back when, like, they were just starting, I assume.
Yeah, so, like, it's interesting in that this is a period where not a lot of other people were doing the Metroidvania thing.
Indie games didn't really exist back then.
Yeah.
Like, not in a way that you could be commercially viable. There was no platform for them. So, like, they had to find a publisher, and that was apparently a huge deal to get Capcom.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's interesting. I feel like if you go way earlier into the 80s and stuff, there's a lot of games that are sort of Metroidvania-y, and then a lot of that drops off, and then indies start coming in, and this is sort of very early indie.
Yeah, it's early indie, and also I think the handheld platform itself kind of lend itself pretty well to it. Like, there certainly were a bunch once the GBA came out, even licensed games. I think there's a Shaman King Metroidvania style thing.
Oh yeah, in 2004.
Not too much longer after this. And yeah, like, there are 3 Castlevania games alone, 2 Metroids on just the GBA, to say nothing of the DS after it. But, like, this is, like, the start of that, I guess, renaissance, if you will. I'm not sure if it's that significant, but, you know, I feel bad, because I know, like, this is a lot of people enjoy it, and I think a lot of people enjoyed it back in the day. I think just the way it's designed, the way it hits my sensibilities specifically, just too much overworld. It was really the thing is that soured me on it.
Yeah.
It's too long between them, too little to get, too small screen for such a large world, but ambitious. It looks great. Gotta say, A+.
Yeah.
Hell, like when you're in towns, it has this weird like parallax thing, which I didn't think the Game Boy Color could even do. It's impressive in a lot of ways, and I can definitely see why a lot of people enjoyed it. I'm just not one of them.
Yeah. I mean, that's a curious thing about the parallax thing. I wonder if they're just implementing it manually.
Yeah, they definitely put the resources where they thought it was necessary, especially in the animations and its visual presentation. I think that's its main draw. But compared to other games, we'll see how it stacks up in our stack rank.
Yeah, where are you putting it?
So, fortunately, sticking near the bottom, just looking at, say, like the cutoff of Legacy of the Wizard, Dragon Slayer 4, the before times and the barely counts. I think I like Aquaria better, which is just above it. So that's really where I'm at. And above Aquaria is Ori and the Blind Forest, and that's compared to this game, that one's untouchable. It's a modern indie, and I feel like that the comparison isn't entirely fair, but I think Aquaria had more interesting stuff going for it, and I think this game is more or less just a Zelda game with the exploration bits being its worst aspect. So yeah, new number 17 under Aquaria, Shantae.
Yeah, I'm thinking pretty similarly. Man, I dunked on Aquaria.
I mean, we both did.
Why was I so mean to Aquaria?
There are some janky ass jank to it, but also has a more like aesthetic style, like as its draw. But I think the exploration in that game was better, even though the combat was much worse. I don't think the combat in this game is necessarily over the moon better. It's just competent.
Yeah.
Whereas Aquaria's is super janky, but the other aspects to it make it more. It sticks out in my mind more. At least that's my justification.
Yeah, I put Aquaria way lower, but I think I'm also going to put it right after Aquaria. This feels kind of controversial in that I feel like I'm saying that Legacy of the Wizard and Maze of Gallius are better than this.
That is what you're saying. Make no mistake.
I don't know, maybe I ranked Legacy of the Wizard and Maze of Gallius a little high.
We're kinder on them in the mists of time than you are on Shantae here.
Yeah, but why am I kinder on them in the mists of time for being a...
Because they're an additional 20 years before Shantae.
They're only... Yeah, I guess that is...
15?
Almost... Yeah. It is... yeah.
Them's is old games.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put it at number 20 in between Aquaria and the Metroid for the NES.
I'm like looking at all the games that I've selected near the bottom here. Trash taste.
Let me just dump on your choices.
Yeah. I mean, you're the one who gave us Xanadu, so really.
Yeah.
Whomst among us is free from sin?
Speaking of giving us Xanadu.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Because apparently we aren't going back into the past enough with 2002.
Samurai Jack.
Yes, Samurai Jack. There's probably a Samurai Jack licensed game on the GBA, isn't there?
Oh, there has to be. But it's probably like a dumb action game. Anyway.
I was thinking that we should go to one of the very early ones. One of the ones that is considered the example, Brain Breaker from 1985.
Oh no, my brain. You know that's my weakest element. I only got one of these. I can't break it.
It might be pretty janky. I don't know. We'll see.
I guess so. Yeah, what is this thing for?
I think it's an MSX game.
Oh, man. Time to bust that thing out again. Awesome.
No, it's for the Sharp 1X or X1.
That sounds like a made-up console. Are you sure this game exists?
Look, all consoles sound made up before the video game crash.
That is true. And even then, the GameCube is basically just something...
Okay, I just looked something up that definitely was not a remake of this for the Switch.
Okay.
Turns out, no.
All right.
Yeah, I guess, did you have any more closing thoughts on this? I think this game actually has a remake for the Switch, come to think of it.
I think so, or some sort of re-release, but that's fine. Later games will kind of shake up the format. I think Half Genie Hero is very much a level-based platformer. Kind of eschews the Metroidvania elements. But, I don't know. Again, I'm speaking out of my butt. But If you would like to speak at my butt, you can always send us a message on Facebook. Send an email to invertedcastlepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at invertedcastlepr. Never forget the P. Or leave a comment, review anywhere you're hearing this, I guess. As long as it's positive. Again, I'm too stupid to get sarcasm. But yeah, any closing thoughts for yourself?
No, you got one?
Nope. So that's been it for us. I've been Eric Fox.
And I'm Thomas Blade.
And remember, kids, even half genies need to deal with full genie consequences.